We're making lots of progress here on Kintips. We're going to change this to parents so it's more generic and universal. Instead of saying child ID or partner ID here, it's using one or the other. I want to say ID down here, and I want to do the conditional stuff up here. So let's change this and just make it name and ID. And then over here in the class, we'll do the same thing. We're going to change this, make it much more simple. We're not working with name types right now. We're doing kin types right now. I want to change this to ID and name. And you can use them for other stuff. Okay, now widget is an instance of cell, which we just looked at over here. Over in the events table, we're using the cell class, calling it widget. So we've got an event ID key, we've got a kin type key, those are working, and we've got this conditional statement down here for the three kinds of kin type: partners, offsprings, and parents. The way it was working before, it could do one or the other, but I want to fix that. If kin text equals partner, this is going to be ID, and this is going to be name. Theoretically now maybe that'll be working for both of those instead of one or the other. There's your Sally F. Euclid, your Frida Q. Jones, your Marvin Jed Lucid. Those are the three children up here. Sally, Marvin, Frida. Nothing on occupation. There's your George Fred Euclid on both those, so that worked fine. And now we have to do something about parent tips. The parents is right. All we got to do is get the ID and name in there somehow. It's going to be a little bit more complicated because that information does not yet exist in events data dictionary. Here's our partner name. We need a parent name and a parent ID, but besides the fact that they're not in here yet, for birth, fosterage, adoption, guardianship. All right, let me fix this up a little bit so it's easy to read. All right, now this self.events data. Each one of these has an event ID for a key and a dictionary for some values. There's a fosterage, a guardianship, a birth, and an adoption. This is exactly what we expect to see here, except we don't have a name and ID for the father, we don't have a name and ID for the mother. So we have to go to the place where events data is created and add those keys to this dictionary in the right event. When that information is accessed for some other purpose, or if it's not, then we'll have to just go get it. But look at, when are we putting partner ID and partner name in? When are we putting child ID and child name in for offspring? Offspring is created by Treebard, not by the user, by going to the birth event or the birth-like event, so the parentage event basically, birth, guardianship, foster, or adoption. We find these events and we create the offspring event. We didn't create the event ID. This is the birth event of the child. 246 is the event ID of Sally F. Euclid's birth. So 248 is the birth event of Frida Q. Jones. 249 is the birth event ID for Marvin Jed Euclid. This is the right event ID for this child. But we're recording this information in their parents' events table, so that when the user looks at the parents' events table, then they will see who their children are and when they were born as events in their life. Even though we don't have an offspring event in the database, because that would be double entry of data, and that's not allowed in UNIGEDS. We can't double enter any data in UNIGEDS because that would denormalize the database, and we can't do that. We have to make a standard for genealogy databases, so we can't do any denormalization. We have to keep it real clean. No double entry of anything. If the information exists in one place, then we need it in two places. Then we have to go to the one place where it actually exists and glean what we need from that one place and figure out a way to do it. And that's what I did here by creating offspring events, by finding the birth events for the current person's children. The current person is Mila Schreiner. So basically what we're looking for is to add a key in this dictionary something like left ID for the father or the person on the left, however the user has entered the information. And then we go to the name. There's a name method. When you have an ID, you use the ID to get the right name. So whether it's birth name or whatever name is appropriate according to the hierarchy, then we're going to get left name. And we're going to do the same with the right ID, the right name, or the person on the right or the mother or whatever. So we're going to add 4 keys to these 4 event types so that they'll work like the child ID, child name, partner ID, partner name. We're going to have something like that down here too. So when is it that we create the offspring event? Can we get the parents at the same time and put them in self.events data for the birth-like events? Get generic events, get couple events. It's starting to sound vaguely interesting here. This is the sort of thing where you go to the database and you get a person ID 1 and a person ID 2. This is what I'm saying, left and right, father and mother, or whatever is on the left and whatever's on the right. Partners, in other words. Okay, and then we're auto-creating parent events, birth and alt-birth events, birth-like events of all 4 kinds, to auto-create rows when parent is the current person. In other words, we're auto-creating offspring events here. I don't want to analyze this right now. I just want to find the right part of the code and decide whether to work on it or watch Netflix now and work on it tomorrow. Auto-create person events. That looks interesting. If side equals left, then you got to look for ages. Sort of complicated. If I can do it, you can do it better, right? There we got the offspring event IDs. This all works, so don't go in here and change this. You just want to understand it, and I want to add, when I have the parent ID, the left parent and the right parent, when I have those IDs, I want to add them to the dictionary. There you go. That's kind of what I might be looking for right there. There's a child ID and a child name. And this is all about offspring here. Oh, this is events data. Yeah, events data. We're at the bottom. We're going to delete everything below here, hopefully. You see what this is. Running this down here for the 4 different kinds of birth-like events, or you might want to call them parentage events. That's probably better. Call them parentage events. Birth, adoption, fosterage, guardianship. We run auto-create parent events with some parameters. What if we could go into auto-create parent events, see if we have any parent IDs in there that we can use. What if I could find a couple of parent IDs in here? Let's look at the interface, because I think that self.currentPersonID is going to be one of the parents, isn't it? We're talking about birth, fosterage, guardianship, or adoption. Okay, the current person is not going to be one of these people. Tyrone and Viva are going to be the parents there instead of none and none. And when you go fosterage, it's going to be Rico and Janelle. When you say guardianship, it's going to be Peter and Esther. When you say adoption, it's going to be Damien and Leah. And you can have as many adoptions as you want, many guardianship as you want, many fosterage as you want, one birth. If you have more than one set of data on birth or conflicting data on birth, and the same goes for death, you put it in a source. Make an assertion that says he was born on such and such a day, and then make a different assertion based on your other source that he was born on such and such a different day, and then you got 2 sources here. But this is the conclusions table. You put your conclusion here. And if you want to know what else there is that can be said about that event, such as conflicting information, you go look at your sources, and the assertions is what the source says. I want to see these people when I go like that. But I don't want to go looking in the dictionary or whatever it was that I used to create the families table. It's not even in this module. I don't like to go leaking over across to some other procedure. I like to have everything self-contained. So if it's not in here, I'll just go get it out of the database, no problem. But if it already exists in this module, then I want to go get it. Or if it could easily be added to something that already exists in this module, then I want to do it there instead of just creating a whole new query. But offspring is the wrong place to look. That's not right. And I have the event ID. So let me tell you what I'm thinking here. I have the event ID. Mila Schreiner is person number 51. The easiest way, it's no great mystery how to get it. It's easy to get. Person ID is 51. This is Mila Schreiner, and these are her events. Well, these are her parents. In a event type 83, 1, 48, or 95, those are the parentage events. So there is your parents right there. This is the occupation event. There is no couple ID. This is UNIGEDS. This did not write itself. I sweat blood over this for 5 years so far. Well, almost 6. But I don't change it every day. I change it as infrequently as possible. It's becoming more and more stable. It has become, I would say, almost very stable at this point. I always brag about it, say, this could be a replacement for GEDCOM. Just give somebody your database. And they can write their GUI based on UNIGEDS. They can make it look completely different from Treebard. They can make it do anything they want, make charts or whatever. I think I'm just going to write a query here because I've got the event IDs. So I'll look for a couple IDs. If there's a couple ID and if it's event type 1, 83, 48, or 95, okay, then I'm going to get the couple ID, and that's how I will get the names and the IDs, because inside of couple ID is just a junction table. It has nothing in it but foreign keys for person ID, left, right, 1, 2. This is left person, this is right person, father, mother. For example, on the birth, that's event type ID 1. Couple ID 36, that's the father, that's the mother. Okay, so I just need to go get those, and that's pretty easy to do. Based on what I do know, which is the event ID, I will get the couple ID, and then having the couple ID, I will get the person ID and the person ID. And I want to do that in a place where I'm creating keys inside of events data dictionary. And that way, we're kind of creating events data all in one place, so it's not scattered all over the place. Okay, get events. We've got generic events. That's the non-couple events. We are dealing with the generic events right here. But what did we do first? We got couple events. All right, but this is not a couple event. It's inside of here. These are parentage events. This might be the right place to be, okay? I was going to look inside here for this. Well, this is all about offspring event ID. This is the one that we want. There's that query. Okay, get partner side. Is it left person or right person? Is it father or mother? That sort of thing. Side equals none, because sometimes there's nobody in there. If you look at couple table, you see some of them are null. Sometimes you don't know the mother's name or you don't know the father's name, but you write down what you do know. What you don't want to do is go in here and start changing anything until you understand the right place to do it. This is really easy to do. The best thing to do instead of messing around is to write a new method that does exactly what I want and doesn't interact with anything else. Where does this run? Well, it runs right here. Now what we want to do is we want to run something else too. We want to make a new custom method, and we're going to call it get parents. Okay, now in auto create parent events, it doesn't have a return value. Don't make it complicated. I'm going to need to do select, so we're passing our cursor into there. For each of these events, there's going to be one set of parents. So we're going to go cur fetch 1. That's going to be a tuple with 2 things in it. And we're going to pretend we have a query, which you probably do already, called select. Then we go into the couple table, and we're going to say, what do we already know? We know the event ID. We don't have to say, well, what is it? This kind of event? Is it that kind of event? Doesn't matter. We already have the event ID. So that's what we're going to use to get the information that we need. We're going to select couple by event ID, and let's just see if that already exists. No, but it might be called something else. Select couple by event ID. If it's a select from the couple table, it will start out select couple. There's a few of those. All right, let's just create one right now. Select person ID 1, person ID 2, from couple where event ID equals that. There is no event ID in the couple table, so we have to join to the event table, and we have to join on something that they have in common, which is a foreign key situation. So in the event table, we have a couple ID, and it needs to match couple ID. Parent IDs can be deconstructed into left ID, right ID. Let's go result equals cur fetch 1, because you can't deconstruct none into two things. So if result is not none, left ID, right ID equals result. Obviously we're calling birth, adoption, fostering, and guardianship a generic event as opposed to a couple event, because it happens to one person. There is a couple ID associated, but that's for the parents. Whereas in a couple event, there is no person ID. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Couple ID, person ID. If there was a couple event, like a marriage, for example, there would be no person ID, and there would be a couple ID. But with a birth, we have a person ID for the person that's born, and a couple ID for the parents. This can be null. Get parents, we need a cur, we need an event ID. Do we have a cur up here? Yes. Now this is where we put those new keys in. So apparently this is a tuple. Okay. Then I don't have to put it in a tuple. Just pass it. At this point where this runs, we do not yet have a self.events data. We're sending it someplace with a return value. We're passing it to a method and adding something to it instead of saying self. And then at the end, events data. Since it's a dictionary, it's mutable. Let's give it some default values. The main key is event ID. It wanted to be a tuple here. Let's keep this clean here. And pass that. And put this back in parentheses and make a tuple out of this, and then this is an integer. And now we go back to make Kintip and we uncomment this code. Let's not uncomment name yet. And we'll go over to the class. We don't say left or right down here. We just say ID. So I'm going to take these out, and we're going to do something hackish. We're down here at the very bottom, weren't we? Now we're just going to do this. We're going to make a string, then we're going to split it later on, get an ID back out of it. Turn that ID into a string. Now we're going to work with what we have instead of going against the grain and expanding the code for no particular reason. Okay, there you go. Parents. And we're not going to try to make this perfect first. We're going to try to get all our data in there first. So we've got the parents now. In each case, we've got the correct set of parents. And then we're going to get their names. And then we're going to turn those into pretty Kintips. Now we have over in persons a method that will turn an ID into the right name, the name we want to display. The birth name, if there is one, and if not, then it goes through the hierarchy and finds the next most acceptable name to display. So you got to put in the ID number and the family tree, and it's going to return the name. Okay, that should be pretty easy. widget.tip name equals put it back like this. I forgot to split. So the name is a whole dictionary. The key name will give us the value, Tyrone Pinkham Kaplinger, and we don't need a name type because this is not a name tip. We don't need a name ID, sort order, any of that stuff. All that stuff is there for the use of name tips for the most part inside that dictionary. This goes here. There you got your IDs. It went and got the birth names of those two people. Person number 26 is Tyrone Pinkham Kaplinger. Person number 65 is Viva Self. Person number 66 is Rico. Person number 42 is Janelle. Peter and Esther. Damien and Leah. It's now working perfectly. It could be formatted better so that you don't have to think about it. So we're going to say parents. Number 78, Damon B. Baxter, and number 79, Leah Rosamond. This isn't perfect. Widget.tip name. That's not the thing I wanted to change. Well, see, here's the problem. We got two people here. What I want on the left is a left ID and left name. What I want on the right is a right ID and right name, so I could cheat. It will be a little bit weird if I do, but it will display right. Let's go like this. This is going to be weird. Then tomorrow I can make it better. Okay, we do want part of this here. Now when I say widget.tip ID here, I'm lying. This is going to be actually the left ID and the left name. And then for this, it says name, but it's actually going to be right ID, right name. Parents, number 26, Tyrone Pinkham Kaplinger, and 65 Viva Self. That's getting right on down to almost what I wanted.
I'm forever blowing bubbles, pretty bubbles in the air. They fly so